It sounds dramatic, almost cinematic, like a line pulled from a thriller. But what if the most powerful rescues don't come from sirens, weapons, or chaos? What if they begin with awareness, with a single internal click that says, "I see what's happening, and I refuse to disappear"? This message is not about crime in the literal sense alone. It's about the quieter kidnappings that happen every day, the ones that steal time, confidence, voice, and direction. The ones that don't leave bruises but leave people unrecognizable to themselves. The moment you truly open this message, those kidnappings fail. Not later. Not someday. Instantly, kidnapping works only when there is confusion, fear, and silence. It depends on shock, on the mind freezing, on the victim believing they have no options. This is true whether the kidnapper is a person, a system, an expectation, a habit, or a story you've been told about who you are allowed to be. The instant clarity enters the room, control weakens. The instant awareness arrives, power shifts. That is why this message matters. You are not reading words. You are reclaiming ground. Most people don't realize when the kidnapping begins. It rarely starts violently. It starts politely. It starts with "be realistic," with "this is just how things are," with "you should be grateful." It starts with small compromises that feel harmless in the moment. You silence a thought. You delay a dream. You accept disrespect because arguing feels exhausting. Over time, the space inside you gets smaller. Your voice lowers. Your posture changes. And one day you wake up living a life that looks fine from the outside but feels locked from the inside. That is the real kidnapping. And it thrives on unexamined days. Open this message and notice something important. You are still here. If you were truly gone, you wouldn't feel the tension, the restlessness, the quiet ache that says there is more. That discomfort is not weakness. It is evidence of resistance. It is proof that the kidnapping was never complete. Something in you stayed awake. Fear is the kidnapper's favorite tool. Not loud fear, but subtle fear. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being judged. Fear of starting and failing. Fear of being seen trying. This fear doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you to wait until you're ready, to wait until conditions are perfect, to wait until permission arrives. But permission rarely comes from the outside. Waiting is how time gets stolen while you're being polite about it. The moment you see fear as a tactic rather than a truth, its grip loosens. Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means something matters. Fear means you're near the edge of growth. Kidnapping fails when fear is exposed for what it is, information, not instruction. Another method kidnappers use is distraction. Endless scrolling. Endless noise. Endless urgency about things that don't actually move your life forward. When your attention is fragmented, your agency disappears. You are easier to steer when you are tired, overwhelmed, and numb. This is not accidental. A distracted mind is a controllable mind. Opening this message is an act of defiance against distraction. It is you choosing to be present, even for a few minutes. Presence is dangerous to anything that wants to control you. When you are present, you ask better questions. You notice patterns. You stop running on autopilot. And kidnappers hate nothing more than a conscious human being. There is also the kidnapping of identity. Being told who you are before you have a chance to discover it yourself. Being labeled early and living inside that label forever. The quiet one. The average one. The responsible one. The problematic one. Labels can feel safe because they reduce uncertainty, but they also reduce possibility. When you mistake a label for a limit, you hand over your future without a fight. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are not the role you were assigned. You are not the version of you that survived harder times. Growth is not betrayal of your past, it is completion of it. The kidnapping fails when you realize identity is not a cage, it is a draft. And drafts are meant to be revised. Many kidnappings succeed because the victim believes they are alone. Isolation magnifies fear and shrinks courage. You start thinking everyone else has it figured out, that you're the only one struggling, the only one doubting. That lie keeps you quiet. Silence keeps you stuck, but struggle is not a personal flaw, it is a shared human experience. The people you admire most have stood exactly where you are, unsure, overwhelmed, questioning themselves. The difference is not confidence. It is movement. They took one step while still uncertain. They didn't wait to feel brave. They moved and bravery followed. Opening this message connects you back to that truth. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are in process. Kidnapping also fails when you remember your body. Stress, fear, and control live in the body as much as in the mind. Shallow breathing, tight shoulders, clenched jaws, these are physical signs of containment. Freedom is not only a mindset, it is a physical experience. A deep breath. A straightened spine. A relaxed grip, try it now. Breathe in fully. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the weight of your feet on the ground. This is not symbolic. This is practical. A regulated body sends a signal of safety to the brain. Safety allows choice. Choice destroys captivity. You may think you need a dramatic escape, a bold declaration, a complete life overhaul. But most kidnappings end quietly. With a boundary. With a decision. With a refusal to continue a pattern that drains you. With a single honest conversation. With starting before you feel ready, power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stops explaining itself. This message is not telling you to fight everyone or burn everything down. It is inviting you to stop disappearing. To stop shrinking to fit spaces that no longer deserve you. To stop negotiating with voices, internal or external, that benefit from your silence. The world doesn't need a louder version of you. It needs a truer one. There will be resistance. Old patterns don't dissolve politely. People who benefited from your compliance may be confused by your clarity. That does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means the balance has shifted. Growth often feels like loss to those who preferred you smaller. You are allowed to change without explaining yourself to everyone. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. You are allowed to outgrow environments that taught you to survive but not to thrive. Open this message and recognize that awareness is already an escape route. You cannot unknow what you now see. You cannot go back to sleep once something in you has woken up. The kidnapping fails not because everything is suddenly easy, but because you are no longer unconscious. Freedom is not a finish line. It is a practice. A daily choosing. Some days you will feel strong. Some days you will feel tired. Neither disqualifies you. Consistency matters more than intensity. Returning to yourself again and again is how you stay free. If you take nothing else from this message, take this: you are not here to be managed, minimized, or muted. You are here to participate fully in your own life. You are here to ask what you want, what matters, what feels honest. And then to move, slowly or boldly, in that direction. The door was never locked from the outside. It was held shut by fear, habit, and doubt. And the moment you notice that, the lock broke, and now that the door is open, something unfamiliar happens. Not fireworks. Not applause. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels strange because you're no longer being dragged by urgency or fear. Silence can feel unsettling when you've lived inside noise for too long. But this silence is not emptiness. It's space. And space is where choice lives. The first thing you may notice is how tired you are. Not lazy tired. Soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying expectations that were never yours to begin with. From performing versions of yourself that kept others comfortable while slowly draining you. This tiredness is not a signal to give up. It's a signal to finally rest from what was never required. Rest is not weakness. It is recovery of stolen ground. When kidnappings end, the body often trembles. Not from fear anymore, but from release. The nervous system learning it doesn't have to stay on high alert. You may feel emotional without knowing why. You may feel angry about things you once tolerated. That anger is not ugliness surfacing. It is clarity arriving late. Anger, when understood, is simply the part of you that knows a boundary was crossed. Do not rush to suppress it. Listen to it. Translate it. Ask it what it's protecting. You will also notice how quickly old voices try to pull you back. The voice that says, "Don't change too much." The voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" The voice that says, "This freedom won't last." These voices are not prophets. They are echoes. Residue from environments where shrinking was safer than standing tall. Echoes sound convincing because they are familiar. Familiar does not mean true. Freedom feels unfamiliar at first. It lacks scripts. There's no clear instruction manual for being yourself after years of adaptation. That uncertainty can tempt you to run back to the cage just because it had rules. But predictability is not the same as safety. And comfort is not the same as alignment. You are learning a new language now. The language of internal permission. Internal permission sounds like this: I don't need everyone to understand. I can change my mind. I can take up space without apologizing. I can want what I want without justifying it. These sentences may feel radical if you were trained to prioritize harmony over honesty. But honesty is not cruelty. It is accuracy. And accuracy saves lives, especially your own. As you walk forward, notice how your instincts begin to return. Not loud instincts. Quiet ones. Subtle nudges. A feeling of heaviness when something is wrong. A lightness when something is right, even if it's scary. These signals were never gone. They were just drowned out by noise. Trust rebuilds slowly. With yourself first. You don't need to reinvent everything overnight. That pressure is just another form of control wearing a productivity mask. Start small. Choose one thing you will no longer tolerate. Choose one thing you will finally begin. One honest no. One intentional yes. Momentum is born from consistency, not drama. There may be moments when you grieve the time lost. The years spent waiting, complying, surviving. Let that grief move through you, but don't let it chain you. You did what you needed to do with the awareness you had then. Survival was not a failure. It was a strategy. And now the strategy can change. You are not behind. You are right on time for the life that requires this version of you. Some people will only know how to interact with the old you. When you change, they may resist, test, or withdraw. This can hurt. Especially when they are people you love. But remember this: anyone who only feels comfortable when you are smaller is not reacting to your harm, they are reacting to the loss of control. You are not responsible for managing other people's discomfort with your growth. As the days go on, you will notice something else. Courage is quieter than you expected. It doesn't always feel like confidence. Often it feels like choosing anyway. choosing despite shaking hands, choosing despite doubt, choosing despite not having the full map. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear be the driver, and there will be days you slip back. Days you over-explain. Days you shrink again out of habit. This does not mean the kidnapping has resumed. It means you are human. Awareness doesn't erase conditioning instantly. It interrupts it. Each interruption weakens the old pattern. Each return to yourself strengthens the new one. Progress is not linear. Freedom breathes in cycles. One day you will catch yourself responding differently. Pausing instead of panicking. Speaking instead of swallowing words. Leaving situations that once trapped you. And you won't announce it. You'll just notice, quietly, that something has shifted. That is how you'll know this message worked. Not because your life became perfect, but because it became yours. You are no longer waiting to be rescued. You are participating in your own release. And that changes everything. The kidnapping didn't fail because someone else intervened. It failed because you woke up, and when you fully wake up, there is no dramatic finish line. No final battle. No moment where everything clicks forever. What there is, instead, is ownership. Subtle. Grounded. Unshakable. You begin to live from the inside out rather than the outside in. And that is the kind of freedom no one can take from you. You stop asking, will this be accepted? And start asking, is this true? That shift alone changes how you move through the world. Decisions become clearer. Not easier, but clearer. You trade constant approval for quiet alignment. You stop outsourcing your worth to reactions, likes, validation, or permission. And something surprising happens. Peace becomes louder than fear. You begin to notice how much energy you used to spend anticipating other people's moods, managing their expectations, rehearsing conversations that never happened. That energy returns to you now. Not all at once, but steadily. You feel more present in your own life. More awake in your own skin. Less rushed, even when things are demanding. This is what reclamation feels like. You realize that control never really wanted you. It wanted your compliance. And compliance required your silence. Once silence ends, control weakens. Once you start listening to yourself again, the grip loosens permanently. You no longer mistake endurance for strength. You understand that constantly tolerating what hurts you is not resilience, it's self-abandonment. Real strength is choosing yourself without needing a crisis to justify it. There will still be challenges. Freedom doesn't eliminate difficulty, it changes how you meet it. Problems stop feeling like proof of failure and start feeling like information. Feedback. Direction. You become less reactive and more intentional. Less defensive and more discerning. You stop fighting everything. You choose what's worth your energy. You also begin to recognize how powerful your presence is. Not your performance. Your presence. When you're no longer fragmented, people feel it. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You don't chase connection, you allow it. And the right connections respond naturally. You become harder to manipulate, not because you're guarded, but because you're grounded. At some point, you realize you're no longer waiting for permission. You don't need a green light to grow, to leave, to begin, to rest. You give yourself that authority. And once you do, no one can take it back. The past loses its grip. Not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer defines your range. You integrate it instead of dragging it. You carry wisdom forward without carrying the weight, and then, quietly, without announcing it, you start living differently. You choose honesty over harmony. Depth over approval. Meaning over momentum. You stop confusing motion with progress. You stop calling survival a life. You understand now that kidnapping only works when awareness is absent. When you're disconnected from yourself. When fear is allowed to speak louder than truth. But you are no longer asleep. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer negotiable. Opening this message didn't save you. It reminded you that you were never powerless to begin with. The world may still be loud. Demands may still exist. Pressure may still knock. But it no longer owns you. You know who you are when no one is watching. You know what you will and will not trade away, and that knowing becomes your anchor. So if you ever feel the pull again, toward shrinking, silencing, surrendering, return here. Not to these words, but to the awareness they point to. The part of you that sees clearly. The part of you that chooses consciously, because the truth is simple, even if it took a long time to feel it. No one can kidnap someone who is awake. You opened the message, you stayed present, you chose yourself, and that is how it ends.